She had never expected her day to turn out like this. The morning had begun like any other, with the sun rising slowly over the horizon and a thin mist clinging to the edge of the industrial zone. The air smelled faintly of oil and metal, mixed with the earthy scent of damp soil. She was walking along a narrow path that ran behind a series of warehouses, thinking about her usual tasks, when something small and strange caught her eye. At first, she thought it might be a dog or some kind of wild animal. But as she got closer, she realized it was neither. It was small, no bigger than a medium-sized dog, with scales that shimmered faintly in the early sunlight. Its wings were folded awkwardly against its body, and it trembled slightly as it crouched in a patch of tall grass. Its eyes were large and bright, filled with an expression she had never seen before, a mix of fear, confusion, and hunger. She froze, unsure of what to do. Her first instinct was to run, to leave the strange creature behind and pretend she hadn't seen anything. But the tiny sounds it made, soft whimpers that almost sounded like a child crying, pulled at her heart. She knelt down slowly, careful not to make sudden movements that might scare it away. She whispered softly, trying to soothe it, even though she didn't know if it could understand her. The dragon's eyes followed her every move, its tiny head tilting, as if trying to measure whether she was a threat. Its scales were dull and dusty, and she could see that it was weak. She crouched a little closer and extended her hand, palm open, letting it sniff her fingers. The dragon hesitated, then took a cautious step forward, its small claws scratching lightly against the ground. She could feel its tiny body trembling against her hand when she gently lifted it. It was lighter than she expected, almost fragile, and she realized just how much it must have suffered. Her mind raced. What should she do? She knew she couldn't leave it there. It was too small, too vulnerable, and the area around the warehouses wasn't safe. There were machines and tools, and the workers wouldn't understand a creature like this. She needed help, but where could she find someone who would believe her, and more importantly, someone who could help feed it? She remembered the human foreman she had seen earlier, near one of the construction sites. He was practical, no nonsense, and seemed to get things done. Perhaps he could help, or at least offer advice. It was a risk. Humans often reacted unpredictably to things they didn't understand, but she had no other choice. Cradling the dragon gently in her arms, she began the careful walk toward the construction site. Every step was a challenge. The dragon made soft, almost inaudible squeaks, and she had to stop several times to let it settle. It was clear it hadn't eaten in days, maybe even longer. Its eyes were half closed, and its body shivered with hunger and exhaustion. She whispered encouragements to it, even though she wasn't sure it understood the words. Sometimes she stroked its tiny head, hoping the gentle touch would comfort it. The path to the site was not long, but it felt endless. She had to navigate uneven ground, puddles from the morning dew, and stray pieces of scrap metal. The dragon, small as it was, seemed to sense her concern and huddled closer against her chest. She could feel its warmth, and it was comforting in a strange way, as if it was as frightened of the world as she sometimes felt herself. When she finally reached the edge of the site, she could see the foreman talking to a few workers. He noticed her immediately because she looked unusually tense, and something small and unusual was tucked against her chest. His brow furrowed as he approached, and she could tell from the way he held himself that he was prepared for anything except what he was about to see. When she held out her hands and revealed the tiny dragon, the foreman's eyes widened. He took a cautious step back, his arms crossing instinctively across his chest. It wasn't every day that someone brought a mythical creature into a human workspace. The dragon's scales caught the sunlight, reflecting faint shades of green and gold. Its tiny wings twitched nervously, and a soft wisp of smoke escaped from its nostrils. I found it, she said, her voice shaking slightly. It's hungry. It's weak. I don't know how to feed it properly, but I can't leave it here. She paused, unsure if she had to explain more. Please, can you help me? The foreman didn't answer immediately. He studied the dragon with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. His practical mind was racing. What was it? Where did it come from? Could it be dangerous? Yet, despite all the questions running through his head, he noticed the dragon's frailty. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't trying to bite or claw. It was simply small, scared, and hungry. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right, he said. Let's see what we can do. There was still caution in his voice, but also a willingness to help. He led her to a quieter part of the site, away from the machines and workers. The dragon nestled against her, clearly sensing that it was about to get some relief. As they approached a small, cleared area, she felt a mix of relief and nervousness. Relief because the dragon would finally get help. Nervousness because she didn't know how the foreman would handle it. She had seen humans react in strange ways to things they didn't understand, but something about this man felt different. He had the kind of calm authority that made her feel that maybe, just maybe, the dragon was safe in his hands. She placed the dragon gently on the ground. It crouched, still wary, and looked up at her and the foreman with wide, trusting eyes. The foreman crouched as well, careful not to make sudden movements, and examined the dragon closely. Its scales were rough and dirty, its tiny wings weak, and its stomach visibly concave from hunger. He let out a low whistle, more impressed than frightened. This is something else, he said softly. I've never seen anything like it. He glanced at her. You're lucky it came to you. It's weak, and if you hadn't found it, well, I don't want to think about it. She nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. I couldn't just leave it. I didn't know what else to do. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to stroke the dragon's head. The dragon leaned into her touch, closing its eyes briefly. She smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time, a mix of hope and responsibility. The foreman stood up and looked around. All right, he said. We'll start with food. Something easy, something small. We'll see what it can eat, and then we'll go from there. His tone was practical, but there was a spark of curiosity and care in his eyes. The dragon looked up at him, its head tilting slightly, as if it understood that this human might actually help. For the first time since she had found it, the dragon seemed a little more relaxed. Its tail curled gently around its body, and it gave a small, almost contented sigh. She realized that this moment, this tiny pause in a chaotic, strange day, was the beginning of something extraordinary. They didn't know how it would unfold yet, but together, she and the foreman had taken the first step in saving a fragile life, and perhaps in discovering something truly amazing. The foreman took a step back and scratched his head, looking down at the small creature that blinked up at him with wide, nervous eyes. It was strange, almost unbelievable, but there was no denying that it was real. The little dragon's scales glinted faintly in the sunlight, and its tiny wings twitched nervously. He could feel the warmth of its small body as it rested against the woman's chest. I've seen a lot of strange things, he said slowly, but this is something else. His eyes flicked to the woman. How did you even find it? She swallowed, unsure how to explain. I was walking behind the warehouses, she said softly, and I heard it crying. I couldn't leave it there. It was alone, and it looked so weak. I didn't know what else to do. The foreman nodded, but his brow furrowed. You did the right thing bringing it here. But feeding it, that's going to be tricky. Never seen a dragon before. Never had one in my life. And I've worked with a lot of weird animals over the years. He glanced around at the scattered tools and machines at the site. We'll have to figure this out carefully. No sudden moves, no surprises. It's scared enough already. She nodded, feeling a little relief wash over her. She had been worried the humans would reject the dragon, or even get scared and harm it. But there was something in the foreman's voice, a careful, steady kind of calm, that made her hope this was going to work out. The foreman crouched down slowly, keeping his hands visible and low. "Hey, little one," he murmured, almost to himself. "You're safe for now. We're just going to see if we can get you something to eat." The dragon flinched slightly at his voice, but didn't move away. It seemed to sense that these humans meant no harm, even if they were completely unknown and strange to it. The woman knelt beside him, still holding the dragon loosely. "I think it hasn't eaten in days," she said quietly. "I don't know what dragons eat when they're this small. Maybe meat, or I don't know." She glanced nervously at the foreman, hoping he had some idea. The foreman scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Well, we can start simple. Let's try small pieces of meat. That usually works for most young animals. We'll see if it'll eat it." He looked around the site and found a small piece of leftover meat that had been discarded earlier. He tore it into tiny bits, careful not to make sudden movements. The dragon's eyes followed every motion. Its small wings twitched nervously, and it hissed softly, a sound more of caution than anger. The foreman extended a small piece of meat toward it. The dragon sniffed, then backed away slightly. The woman noticed its hesitation and gently whispered, "It's okay. You're safe. You don't have to be afraid." They tried again, this time offering the meat from her hand. Slowly, carefully, the dragon edged closer, sniffing the tiny piece. Finally, it took a small bite. The woman's face lit up with relief. "Good, good," she whispered, smiling. The dragon looked up at her with bright, curious eyes, then took another tiny bite. The foreman chuckled softly. "See? Patience. That's all it needed." He continued offering small pieces while keeping his movements slow and steady. Every bite the dragon took seemed to give it more confidence. Its tiny body stopped trembling as much, and its wings twitched less nervously. For a while, they simply watched it eat, not speaking much, as if giving the dragon space to feel safe. The woman could feel a warm, strange joy rising in her chest. She had rescued it, yes, but this moment watching it take its first real food in days felt like more than just survival. It felt like a connection. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that they were now responsible for this small, fragile life. Once the dragon had eaten a little, it curled up briefly at her side, resting its head on her hand. Its eyes closed for a few moments, and she realized that it was finally starting to trust her. The foreman's expression softened as he watched. He had not expected to feel affection for the creature, but he did. Something about its vulnerability, its tiny, imperfect form, tugged at his human instincts. "Looks like it's going to be okay for now," he said. "But it's going to need more than just a little meat. We'll have to figure out a regular feeding plan. And it's going to need a safe place to stay until it's stronger." His voice was calm, but there was a hint of wonder in it, like he was amazed at what he was seeing. The woman nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. I can't take it home like this. It's too big to hide, and I don't think it would survive on its own." She hesitated, unsure what to suggest. "Do you think? Maybe we could keep it here for now?" The foreman looked around. "It's not ideal, but maybe for a short time. We can clear a quiet corner of the site, somewhere it won't get stepped on or scared by the machines. We'll make it a little safe zone." He smiled faintly. "Never thought I'd be saying this in my life, but I guess we're keeping a dragon." The dragon lifted its head as if it understood, blinking slowly at both of them. It made a soft cooing sound and nudged the woman's hand. She laughed softly, the sound light and happy. "Looks like it approves," she said. They spent the rest of the morning preparing a small corner of the site. The foreman moved some crates and a few discarded sheets of metal to create a kind of enclosure. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make the dragon feel protected. The woman gathered a few soft rags and placed them inside so the creature had something comfortable to lie on. The dragon sniffed and then curled up, clearly feeling safer than it had when they first found it. As they worked together, the woman realized something important. The foreman wasn't just practical and cautious. He was genuinely kind. He had a way of taking care of things, of thinking through the steps, that made her feel like the dragon was in good hands. And more than that, he didn't dismiss her or the dragon as something impossible. He accepted the situation and focused on what could be done. By noon, the small dragon had eaten a little more and seemed stronger. Its eyes sparkled, and its tiny tail flicked with excitement every time they approached. It was still weak, but the change was noticeable. The woman felt a sense of hope growing inside her. They had made it through the first challenge, finding food and a safe space. The foreman leaned against a crate, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You know," he said, "I've worked here for years. I've seen accidents, injuries, even wild animals wander in sometimes. But never anything like this. A dragon, small, scared, and hungry. And now, somehow, it's here, and we're feeding it. It's amazing." She smiled, feeling a mix of relief and wonder herself. "I didn't know what else to do. But seeing it eat, seeing it trust us, it feels like we're doing the right thing." The foreman nodded slowly. "Yeah, you did the right thing. We did the right thing." He glanced down at the dragon, which had now begun exploring its little enclosure, poking at the rags and sniffing the corners. "I think it's going to be okay. But this is only the beginning. We've got to figure out how to take care of it properly, how to make sure it grows strong and healthy." The woman nodded, feeling a sense of determination. They had come a long way in just a few hours, but she knew the real work was just beginning. The dragon had survived its first day with them, and that was a small miracle in itself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more food, more care, more patience. But for now, they could rest and watch the little dragon, knowing they had taken the first steps in something extraordinary. And as the sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the small corner of the site, the dragon's eyes shone with trust. The foreman's heart softened with wonder, and the woman felt a connection she had never expected to find, a bond with a creature so magical and fragile, and a sense that together they were beginning an incredible journey. Feeding a young dragon turned out to be far more complicated than the woman or the foreman had imagined. At first, it seemed simple enough, just small pieces of meat, carefully offered, but the little creature was clearly more particular than any ordinary animal. It sniffed the food, sometimes took a tiny bite, then would push it away, flick its tail, or let out a small puff of smoke as if saying, "No, that's not right." The woman watched, a mix of concern and fascination on her face. "Maybe it doesn't like this kind of meat," she said softly. She picked up another piece, a bit softer this time, and held it out. The dragon's head tilted, its bright eyes narrowing as if judging the food. It inched closer, sniffed, then hissed softly, and retreated. The foreman knelt beside her, arms resting on his knees, watching the little dragon carefully. "Patience," he said. "It's going to take time. You can't force it. It's scared and hungry, but it's also figuring out what it likes. We just have to let it decide." His voice was calm and steady, almost like a guide for both the woman and the dragon. They tried several foods over the next hour. Raw fish, small pieces of chicken, even bits of bread were offered. The dragon sniffed everything carefully, then took a tiny nibble, or sometimes ignored it completely. Each time it refused, the woman felt a twinge of worry. Was it going to starve? Could they really help it survive? But the foreman's steady presence reassured her. "We'll figure it out," he said. "We just need to be patient." At one point, the dragon tried to reach for a piece of meat, but accidentally knocked it away with its tiny claws. It looked frustrated, puffed a tiny wisp of smoke, and curled up its wings in defeat. The woman reached out, placing her hand gently on its small head. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're doing fine. We'll get it right." She felt the tiny heat of its body against her palm, and for a moment she almost forgot that this was a creature so different from anything she had ever known. The foreman laughed softly. "It's a little stubborn, isn't it?" he said. "But that's a good sign. It's learning. It's thinking. And that means it's going to survive." He reached for another piece of food and offered it slowly, letting the dragon sniff first. The dragon hesitated, then, almost imperceptibly, took a small bite. The woman's face lit up. "Good job," she whispered, barely containing her excitement. The dragon blinked at her, then chewed carefully, as if testing the flavor. It seemed to like this one. It took a few more small bites, and the woman felt a surge of hope. They had finally made some progress. The feeding was messy, though. The dragon was small, but it had surprisingly sharp little claws, and it sometimes made tiny sparks when it got excited or frustrated. Pieces of meat were knocked to the ground, and a small puff of smoke singed the edge of a rag they had placed for it. The woman tried to laugh it off, brushing away the tiny scorch mark. "Well, it's not going to be clean," she said. "But at least it's eating." The foreman nodded, clearly amused. "You said it yourself," he said. "This isn't a normal animal. It's going to be a little chaotic. But that's okay. That's part of the adventure." After several attempts, the dragon began to eat more steadily. It was still cautious, but the tiny victories were enough to encourage both of them. The woman kept talking to it softly, telling it that it was safe and that it could trust them. Sometimes the dragon would pause, lift its head, and look straight into her eyes as if it understood every word. Those moments were fleeting, but they were precious. The foreman helped by keeping a calm presence nearby. He didn't rush it, didn't make sudden movements, and sometimes even distracted the dragon by talking to it quietly, so it didn't get too nervous about the food. Slowly, the dragon started responding to both of them. Its tiny tail twitched when it was happy, and it stopped hissing at minor disturbances. By mid-afternoon, the dragon was starting to eat more consistently. It still preferred certain pieces of meat over others, but it was clear that it was gaining strength. The woman and the foreman shared a look of quiet satisfaction. It had been a struggle, but they were beginning to succeed. The woman knelt beside the dragon and stroked its tiny head. "See? You're strong," she said softly. "You can do this." The dragon leaned into her hand, closing its eyes briefly, and gave a tiny, contented sigh. For the first time that day, it seemed relaxed. The foreman watched, shaking his head in amazement. "I never thought I'd see a day like this," he said quietly. "Feeding a dragon, watching it trust us. It's incredible." He reached out carefully, touching the dragon's back. The dragon flinched at first, then stayed still, letting him gently stroke its scales. It was clear that the creature was intelligent, far more than any ordinary animal. It seemed to understand their gestures, their tones of voice, and even the pauses between words. Every small interaction, every careful movement, helped it gain confidence. The woman realized that this wasn't just about feeding, it was about teaching trust, showing patience, and creating a bond. As the day went on, the feeding became easier. The dragon's tiny body no longer shook as violently, and it started exploring its small corner of the site while nibbling on food. The woman and the foreman cheered quietly at its little successes, laughing softly whenever it made a small mistake or did something unexpectedly clever. The dragon even started showing small bursts of curiosity. It pawed at the rags, sniffed the crates, and occasionally nudged the woman's hand with its tiny snout. Each interaction was small but meaningful, and both humans felt a growing sense of connection. They were no longer just feeding a creature. They were helping it grow, learn, and adapt to a world that was completely foreign to it. By evening, the dragon had eaten enough to look noticeably stronger. Its eyes shone brighter, its scales seemed to gleam faintly, and it even tried to flap its tiny wings a few times. The woman felt a sense of pride she had never experienced before. They had started the day with a fragile, starving creature, and by nightfall, it was beginning to show signs of strength and life. The foreman stood back and observed quietly. "It's going to be okay," he said. "We've got a long way to go, but it's learning. It's eating. And that's the most important part." He looked at the woman. "We're doing this together. And you know what? I think it likes us." The woman smiled, her hand resting gently on the dragon's small head. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and amazement. She realized that this day, filled with uncertainty, fear, and patience, had become something extraordinary. They had survived the first true challenge, feeding the dragon and beginning to earn its trust. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the industrial site, the dragon curled up on the soft rags, finally resting after a long, challenging day. Its breathing was steady, its tiny wings relaxed, and it occasionally twitched in dreams, perhaps imagining flying or hunting in ways only dragons could. The woman sat beside it quietly, her hands folded in her lap, watching it sleep. The foreman stood nearby, leaning against a crate, a faint smile on his face. They had faced a difficult, unfamiliar situation together, and had succeeded in small but important ways. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Tomorrow will be easier. We'll feed you, we'll help you grow stronger, and we'll keep you safe." The dragon stirred slightly, but didn't wake, as if acknowledging her promise. The foreman nodded quietly. "Yeah, tomorrow will be another step, and I have a feeling it's going to be amazing to watch." In that quiet moment, with the dragon resting and the humans feeling a bond with a creature so magical and fragile, it became clear that this was only the beginning. They had faced a struggle, learned patience, and seen the power of trust forming, and the journey ahead full of challenges, surprises, and small victories promised to be just as extraordinary. For the first time since they found it, they allowed themselves to hope. The little dragon had survived the day, eaten, and begun to trust. And that was a small miracle that no one would forget. By the next morning, the small dragon seemed almost like a new creature. Its scales had a faint, healthy shimmer, and its eyes glimmered with curiosity rather than fear. The woman woke early, careful not to wake the dragon, and watched it stretch its tiny wings and twitch its tail. There was a quiet joy in seeing it so much stronger than the day before. The foreman arrived shortly after, carrying a small basket of fresh food. "Good morning," he said softly, glancing at the dragon. "Looks like someone's already up and about." The dragon lifted its head and blinked at him, letting out a tiny, excited chirp. Its wings flapped a little, as if greeting him. He crouched down and extended a hand, letting the dragon sniff him. When it didn't retreat, he smiled. "I think it recognizes me now." The woman knelt beside the dragon, holding some soft meat in her hand. "It's learning," she said quietly. "I think it knows we mean no harm." The dragon's bright eyes flicked between her and the foreman, as if understanding the trust they were offering. Feeding was still a challenge, but now it was different. The dragon was more confident, more willing to try new foods, and even experimented a little on its own. Sometimes it would sniff a piece of food, then take a tiny nibble and pause, thinking carefully before eating the rest. The foreman chuckled quietly. Patience really does work. It's clever, isn't it? Yes, the woman agreed, smiling. It's smart and careful. It doesn't rush into anything, even food. I think that's why it survived this long on its own. She watched the dragon carefully, stroking its head when it leaned toward her hand. And it's starting to trust us finally. As the morning passed, the dragon began exploring more actively. It walked around its small enclosure, sniffing every corner and poking at the rags with its little snout. Sometimes it batted gently at the foreman's boot, or nudged the woman's hand, testing how far it could reach without fear. Each small movement was a victory, showing that it was slowly becoming comfortable with them. The foreman observed quietly, letting the dragon set the pace. "You know," he said, "I didn't think I'd ever see a dragon up close. And now, here it is, exploring, learning, trusting us. It's incredible." He reached down and let the dragon sniff his fingers again. It hesitated for a second, but didn't move away. It's amazing how fast it's learning to trust. The woman nodded. It's like it understands that we're helping it, not trying to hurt it. Every time it does something new, it's a little step forward. She smiled as the dragon flapped its tiny wings in excitement, then curled back toward her for safety. It's starting to feel safe with us. Throughout the day, they discovered more about the dragon's personality. It was playful at times, batting at pieces of food or chasing small insects that wandered near its enclosure. At other times, it was shy and cautious, retreating to a corner and curling up when noises startled it. Both humans learned to read its moods, understanding when to approach and when to give it space. The dragon's curiosity grew quickly. It began investigating tools, crates, and small objects around the enclosure. Sometimes it would tap something with its tiny claws, then retreat and watch it carefully, learning about its surroundings. The woman laughed quietly when it accidentally knocked over a small can, sending it rolling across the ground. "Careful," she whispered. The dragon chirped, almost as if acknowledging her warning. The foreman chuckled. "It's learning fast," he said. "And it's clever, too. Smarter than I expected. It's not just following instincts. It's thinking, testing things, figuring out what's safe and what's not." He shook his head in amazement. "I've never had an animal like this." By afternoon, the dragon started interacting more actively with both of them. It would approach the woman when she held out food and nuzzle her hand gently. With the foreman, it was more playful, sometimes batting at his fingers or rubbing against his boots. Each interaction deepened the bond. They realized this was not just a fragile creature anymore. It was beginning to trust them fully, showing affection in its own dragon way. The woman felt a warm glow in her chest as she watched. "It's amazing how fast it's changing," she said softly. "Yesterday it was so scared, and now it's exploring, playing, and trusting us. I think it knows we're keeping it safe." She leaned closer and whispered gently to it, "You're safe now. We won't let anything hurt you." The dragon tilted its head, blinking slowly, and made a small chirping sound, almost like a reply. The foreman smiled. "It's like it understands every word you say." He crouched down and stroked its tiny back carefully. The dragon shivered with pleasure and leaned into his hand, letting out a soft, happy sound. "See?" he said. "It knows we're friends." As evening approached, they noticed the dragon growing more confident. It flapped its tiny wings a few times, hopping short distances with growing skill. Its little tail flicked in excitement as it practiced walking and jumping around its small enclosure. Each movement was a sign of growing strength, and both humans were thrilled to witness it. The woman crouched beside it. "You're getting stronger," she said softly. Soon you'll be able to do even more. Just a little more time and patience." She offered a piece of food, and the dragon took it eagerly, clearly enjoying the reward for its efforts. The foreman nodded in agreement. "It's learning to trust, learning to explore, and it's eating well. That's everything we hoped for. The rest will come naturally, I think. It's a smart little dragon, and it's in good hands." They spent the next few hours observing it, learning more about its habits and personality. They discovered it was particularly fond of warmth, curling up near the sunlit corners of its enclosure, and it liked soft surfaces to rest on. It also responded to gentle voices, calming quickly when they spoke softly or hummed quietly. Each discovery felt like a small victory, a step toward understanding this extraordinary creature. By the end of the day, the dragon had grown noticeably more confident. It was no longer huddled in fear, but exploring and interacting. The woman and the foreman exchanged a look of quiet pride. They had come a long way since finding the tiny, trembling creature the day before. The bond was real, visible in the way the dragon leaned into their hands, followed gentle movements, and even chirped in small, happy sounds when they approached Dot as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the sight. The dragon curled up in its corner, exhausted but content. The woman sat nearby, stroking its tiny head and whispering softly, "You're safe, little one. You're safe with us." The foreman leaned against a crate, smiling quietly as he watched the small creature breathe steadily, its tiny chest rising and falling with calm rhythm. They both knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, feeding, exploring, and further building trust, but today had been a victory. The dragon had grown stronger, more confident, and more playful. The bond between them had deepened, showing that patience, care, and kindness could overcome fear and uncertainty. The woman felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. "We're doing it," she whispered. "We're helping it survive. And it's teaching us, too, about trust, patience, and care." The dragon chirped softly in response, and she smiled, feeling a strange, magical connection. The foreman nodded. "It's amazing, isn't it? How quickly it's learning and trusting. It's like it knows we're here to help. And that's the most incredible thing of all." For the first time, they could see the dragon not as a fragile, scared creature, but as a growing, learning being stronger each day, exploring the world around it, and slowly becoming part of their lives. It was still small and vulnerable, but the transformation was clear. And both the woman and the foreman realized that this was not just about saving a life. It was about forming a bond that would change them forever. As the night settled in, and the stars appeared above the industrial site, the dragon slept peacefully, the warmth of its small body radiating comfort to the humans who had cared for it. They had begun a journey together, a journey of trust, discovery, and extraordinary friendship. And they both knew, deep in their hearts, that the little dragon had already changed their lives in ways they would never forget. The following morning, the small dragon was noticeably more energetic. Its tiny wings twitched excitedly, and it hopped around its little corner of the site with a newfound confidence. The woman smiled as she watched, feeling a sense of pride and wonder. It was incredible how much the creature had changed in just a few days. Its scales seemed brighter, its eyes sharper, and its movements were smoother, almost graceful. The foreman arrived early, carrying a small basket of fresh meat and some water. "Morning," he said softly, glancing down at the dragon. "Looks like someone's ready for breakfast." The dragon chirped happily at the sight of him, and immediately flapped its wings in excitement. Its tail flicked energetically, and it made tiny hopping motions, as if inviting him to join its playful mood. The woman knelt down beside it. "You're growing so fast," she whispered, stroking its head gently. "Every day you get a little stronger, a little braver." The dragon leaned into her touch, closing its eyes for a moment, and gave a soft sigh of contentment that feeding had become easier now. The dragon had developed clear preferences, and it eagerly accepted the meat from the woman and the foreman without hesitation. Sometimes it would even attempt to catch the pieces mid-air when they tossed them gently, showing signs of coordination and playfulness. The foreman chuckled as he watched. "Look at that," he said. "It's learning fast. It's not just eating. It's practicing, thinking, and reacting. That's incredible." The dragon seemed to enjoy their attention and interaction. After eating, it hopped onto a soft pile of rags, then immediately pounced toward the woman's hand when she extended it. She laughed softly as it tried to grab a small piece of meat she offered with its tiny claws. "Careful," she warned gently. "No scratching." The dragon paused, looking up at her with bright eyes, almost as if understanding her words, then carefully nudged the piece with its nose before taking a tiny bite. The foreman joined in, holding another piece of food. "It's like it's learning rules," he said quietly. "Not just survival, but how to behave around us. And it's smart paying attention to what we do and learning from it." He watched as the dragon tested the edges of its small enclosure, hopping from one corner to another with surprising agility. "It's getting stronger, faster than I expected. Soon, it'll be able to move around more confidently." By mid-morning, the dragon began showing small bursts of extraordinary ability. It flapped its tiny wings and lifted slightly off the ground, hovering for a few seconds before landing. The woman gasped in amazement. "You're flying," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "Just a little, but you're doing it." The dragon chirped excitedly and repeated the motion, each time a little higher, a little longer. The foreman smiled, clearly impressed. "Look at that," he said softly. "It's practicing getting stronger. You can see how much potential it has. With time, patience, and care, it's going to be amazing." He reached out his hand, letting the dragon land briefly on his arm. The tiny claws gripped gently, and the dragon leaned against him, chirping softly as if proud of its small achievement. The woman and the foreman realized that this was more than just feeding and survival. The dragon was learning to trust, to explore, and to test its abilities in ways that amazed them both. Each little movement, each small flight, was a sign of its growing confidence and strength. The dragon was no longer just a fragile, scared creature. It was becoming a vibrant, energetic being capable of surprising feats. Throughout the day, they continued to encourage the dragon's exploration and growth. They carefully created a small obstacle course of crates, rags, and tools, allowing it to practice hopping, climbing, and gliding short distances. The dragon approached each challenge cautiously at first, but with encouragement from both humans, it gradually became more daring. It leapt from crate to crate, flapped its wings to steady itself, and chirped excitedly when it landed successfully. The foreman laughed softly. "It's amazing to see how quickly it's learning. Not just survival skills, but coordination, balance, even confidence. And it's clearly enjoying itself." The woman nodded, smiling. "It's like watching a child grow, learning new skills every hour. Except, it's a dragon." She chuckled at the thought, still in awe of the creature before her. By afternoon, the dragon had grown noticeably stronger. Its tiny muscles rippled under its scales as it moved, and it flapped its wings with purpose rather than random motion. It even began to show small bursts of controlled fire, tiny sparks that sizzled harmlessly on the ground. The woman gasped. "It's learning control," she whispered. "Not just strength, but discipline. That's incredible." The foreman's eyes widened. "I didn't think we'd see this so soon," he said. "It's practicing, controlling its abilities, and it's doing it with focus. That's more than instinct. It's intelligence, awareness." He watched as the dragon's little sparks danced across the ground, careful not to touch anything flammable. It's amazing to see something so young, so small, and yet so capable of learning. The dragon chirped in response, as if proud of itself. It flapped its wings, hopped around, and nudged the humans gently with its tiny nose. Both the woman and the foreman laughed softly, delighted by its playful, curious personality. The bond between them had grown stronger each day, and it was clear that the dragon was responding to their care with affection and trust. As evening approached, the dragon rested briefly, curling up on the soft rags. Its tiny body seemed more solid, more confident, and its breathing was steady. The woman knelt beside it, stroking its head gently. "You've come so far," she whispered. "Yesterday you were scared, and today you're exploring, flying, learning. You're amazing." The dragon gave a soft chirp, leaning into her hand, clearly acknowledging her words. The foreman stood nearby, smiling quietly. "We've come a long way," he said, "from a weak, hungry creature to this strong, confident little dragon. And it's just the beginning. Tomorrow, it'll be even stronger, even more capable." He reached down and let the dragon climb briefly onto his arm again. "And it's learning to trust us, not just survive. That's the most incredible thing of all." The woman nodded, feeling a deep sense of hope and pride. "It's teaching us too," she said softly, "about patience, care, and trust. About what it means to help someone grow, even when it seems impossible." She glanced at the dragon, watching it nuzzle against the foreman's hand and chirp happily. "And it's rewarding us in ways we didn't even expect." As the sun set, casting long shadows over the industrial site, the dragon curled up in its corner, exhausted but content. Its tiny body radiated warmth and energy, and both humans felt a quiet joy in watching it rest. They had nurtured, guided, and protected it, and in return, it had begun to show its true potential strength, intelligence, and a playful spirit that brought them wonder and happiness. The foreman and the woman sat quietly, observing the dragon's peaceful breathing. "It's incredible," he said softly, "to see something so small, so fragile, become something so strong and capable in just a few days. And it's all because we cared, guided it, and let it learn at its own pace." The woman smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Yes," she said, "it's amazing how quickly it's grown, but also how much we've learned from it. About trust, patience, and believing in the impossible." She looked down at the tiny dragon, now sleeping peacefully, and whispered, "You're safe, little one. You're safe with us. And tomorrow will be even better." The foreman nodded in agreement. "Yes, tomorrow will bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new growth. And we'll be here for every step, helping it become the amazing creature it's meant to be." As the night settled in, the stars twinkling above, the dragon rested quietly, its tiny chest rising and falling with steady breaths. Both humans felt a sense of wonder and awe at what they had witnessed, the transformation of a fragile, scared creature into a strong, curious, and capable being. And they knew that the journey was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new lessons, and even more extraordinary moments. For now, they allowed themselves to savor this quiet triumph. The dragon had not only survived, but had begun to thrive. And in doing so, it had formed a bond with the woman and the foreman that would continue to grow stronger, proving that care, patience, and trust could accomplish the impossible. The next morning began with a soft golden light spilling over the industrial site. The little dragon stirred in its corner, stretching its tiny wings and letting out a small, contented chirp. Its scales shimmered in the early sun, and its eyes sparkled with energy and curiosity. The woman and the foreman approached quietly, careful not to startle it, but the dragon didn't shy away. Instead, It lifted its head and blinked at them, ready to greet the new day. "Good morning, little one," the woman whispered, kneeling beside it. She stroked its head gently, and the dragon nuzzled her hand in response. "You've grown so much. Look at you, strong, curious, and full of life." The foreman crouched beside them, holding a small piece of food. The dragon's eyes followed every motion, and it hopped excitedly toward the offering. Breakfast was quick this morning. The dragon had grown confident enough to take the food eagerly and even practice catching it mid-air. It flapped its wings lightly as it landed on the soft pile of rags, chirping happily with each successful catch. The woman laughed softly. "You're getting better every day. Soon you'll be able to fly much farther." The foreman nodded. "I can see it. You're learning control, balance, and strength. But today, I think you're ready for something more." He stepped back, giving the dragon space. The little creature's eyes followed him, curious and alert, as if sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. The woman looked at the foreman, intrigued. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. "Just watch," he said quietly. "It's time we see what it can really do." They moved to a wider part of the site, a small open area where the dragon could move freely without the risk of injury. The dragon followed, hopping and flapping its tiny wings in excitement. Its tail flicked back and forth, showing its anticipation. The foreman knelt down, placing a hand on the ground. "All right," he said gently. "You've practiced, you've grown stronger, and you've learned to trust us. Now, I want you to try something new. Can you fly?" The dragon tilted its head, blinking at him. It flapped its wings once, then again, and lifted slightly off the ground. Its eyes were wide, and it hovered for a moment, wobbling in the air. The woman held her breath, amazed at the sight. "Look at it," she whispered. "It's flying." The foreman smiled, watching carefully. "It's small, but it's strong. You've helped it reach this point. Now let it surprise us even more." The dragon flapped its wings harder, gaining a little height. Its small claws brushed the air as it hovered and began to glide slowly forward. Its movements were a little wobbly at first, but each glide became smoother, more controlled. The woman's eyes filled with awe. "It's really flying," she whispered. "It's incredible." Encouraged by their presence, the dragon flapped higher and began making small loops in the air. It chirped with excitement, the sound bright and joyful, echoing softly across the site. The foreman and the woman watched, hearts swelling with pride. They had helped this fragile, scared creature grow into something strong, confident, and capable of wonders they had never imagined. "Look at it go," the foreman said softly. "It's amazing. You've taught it trust, patience, and care, and now it's showing us what it can do." He reached out a hand, and the dragon swooped down, landing gently on his arm. It chirped proudly, tail flicking, wings still quivering from the effort. The woman laughed softly. "It's proud of itself, isn't it? It knows it's strong now. It trusts us, and it's confident in its abilities." She stroked its head gently, and the dragon leaned into her hand, closing its eyes briefly. "You're incredible," she whispered. The foreman nodded, carefully letting the dragon hop off his arm. "I never thought I'd see something like this in my life," he said quietly. "It's not just a dragon. It's a creature that's learning, thinking, and thriving. And it's because we've given it care and patience." The dragon now seemed to understand its surroundings better than ever. It flew short distances, practiced landing on crates, and even explored the edges of the open area. Each flight was more confident than the last, and it occasionally chirped at them as if inviting them to watch its progress. The woman and the foreman shared a quiet look, both filled with awe and pride. "It's more than we could have imagined," she said softly. "From a tiny, frightened creature to this." It's unbelievable. The foreman nodded. And it's not just about flying. Look at how it moves, how it interacts, how it's learning. It's amazing to see life growing, learning, and thriving like this. As the day went on, they continued to encourage the dragon's exploration. They set up small challenges, hopping between crates, gliding from low platforms, and even reaching for small objects. The dragon approached each challenge eagerly, sometimes pausing to think, sometimes flapping its wings in excitement, but always succeeding in the end. The woman watched, fascinated by its intelligence and determination. "It's learning so fast," she whispered. "Every movement, every choice. It's figuring out how to survive, how to move, and how to interact. And it's doing it all so naturally." The foreman smiled. "It's thriving because it trusts us, because it knows we're helping it, not harming it. And it's incredible to witness this transformation." By evening, the dragon had grown noticeably stronger. It was no longer hesitant or shaky in its movements. It glided, landed, hopped, and even practiced tiny bursts of flame, controlled and precise. The woman knelt beside it, stroking its head gently. "Look at you," she whispered. "You've come so far. From a tiny, hungry, scared creature to this strong, confident little dragon. It's amazing." The dragon chirped softly, leaning into her hand and blinking up at her. Its small wings twitched in delight, and its tail flicked slowly, showing its comfort and trust. The foreman crouched nearby, smiling quietly. "You've changed it," he said. "And it's changing us too, teaching us patience, care, and what it means to trust and nurture." The woman nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Yes," she said softly. "It's not just about helping it survive. It's about learning together, growing together. And it's incredible to see how much life can thrive with care, patience, and trust." As night fell, the dragon curled up in its little corner, exhausted but happy. Its tiny chest rose and fell with steady breaths, wings folded neatly, and tail curled around its body. The woman sat beside it quietly, whispering soft reassurances. "You're safe, little one. You're strong, and you've come so far. Tomorrow will bring new adventures, and we'll be here for you." The foreman leaned against a crate nearby, smiling quietly as he watched. "We've seen it grow from a fragile, scared creature to this strong, confident little dragon. And it's only going to get better. The bond we've formed, the trust we've built, it's extraordinary." In that quiet night, the dragon slept peacefully, safe and cared for. Both humans felt a sense of wonder and pride, knowing that their patience, trust, and guidance had helped a fragile, hungry creature grow into something magical and extraordinary. They had witnessed something rare and beautiful, a life transformed through care, trust, and love. And as the stars twinkled above, casting a soft glow over the sight, they knew that the journey was far from over. The dragon had grown stronger, smarter, and more confident, but it was also teaching them lessons about trust, patience, and the power of nurturing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, and new discoveries. But for now, they allowed themselves to savor the quiet triumph of a fragile life turned extraordinary through care and love. They had saved it. They had nurtured it. And in return, it had given them hope, wonder, and a bond that would last forever.